rhythm to the beat. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, friends, neighbors, and, well, you. Yeah, you. You got a problem? You have a problem? I didn't think you did. I don't think you did either. We're going to talk to people that don't have problems because, hey, in lawn care and in turf grass, Ray, we don't have problems. All we have are solutions, including for our special guest tonight, who we'll introduce here in a second. But, Ray, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
You look good in that shirt. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to put it out there because I want to be the first to comment on it and say that you do look pretty dapper, and I'm proud of you for wearing it. Now, with us this evening is our good friend and our one of the newest people in the industry. I'd like to introduce our friend from To the Roots Lawn Care, Curtis. Curtis, how are you this evening?
Good, fine, sirs. How are you guys?
Good. You and this guy, look, I feel underdressed tonight. I feel underdressed. I think J Pink's got a collared shirt on. I'm just doing like a little pullover thing here, like a quarter zip. I didn't get the memo, fellas, that I was supposed to wear a collar. So I feel bad. Like I said, I feel underdressed. Maybe later I'll just take my shirt off and really lower it down a little bit further if I possibly can. So, but no, this is going to be a good episode because the way that Curtis was described to us, we always do like a little, scouting report of who are we talking to and what are we talking about. And I will tell you that our friend, Mr. Martin, who is right now probably about 25 feet in the air, wiring up some very, very important key electrical components in a building that he is working on for an undisclosed project. He is busy right now. He's indisposed. Maybe he'll call in later. Maybe he won't. I don't know. I just told him to make sure he doesn't electrocute himself during this time. So
or fall down.
Right. I'm sure Ray doesn't Matt scream like a guy who is all about fall protection. Like I feel like he has anxiety about heights and is probably all worked up over it. So I could see him having his own personal lanyard, something like that to make sure he's tied off correctly. But the way that he described this to me is that he had a very
DeMay. I think we just lost DeMay.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's how it goes.
So yeah, I'm imagining that, being all about fall protection. I hope. I mean, but then I know the other side of Matt that's a little bit risky, so it's kind of a toss-up. But hopefully, yeah. I mean, somebody tells me 25 feet up in the air, I say thank you, but no thank you. I mean, I don't do heights either. I mean, the closest I come to high work is I get called to spray some pretty high trees because I have the equipment. But other than that, everything gets done, with 2 feet on the ground.
Right. No, I'm definitely not a heights person either at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So which is why you, I suppose you stick to lawn care.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much. Yeah. Because that's kind of like my lane as well. Is I like to have both feet on the ground, and in fact, I prefer to qualify that by saying I prefer to have my feet on flat ground if possible. Although due to my location, that's not always what I get. A 30-degree grade.
Right towards the ocean, right, Ray?
Yep. Right towards the ocean, or right or if not towards the ocean, right down a 100-foot deep gulch.
Either way, you're fake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that to get the death talk out of the way early. I'm not sure that that's one that you would like to survive. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. There it is, Ray the Death Fan. So as before, I was so rudely interrupted by my internet service provider, and maybe some of our friends in Russia. Who knows? I was gonna ask is, okay, hey, you decided to come up with this lawn care business and you're getting ready to push out there, but like, tell us, how did you get here? What's your background, right, into getting into this career, this parallel career, as it was described to me? Where did you come from, and how'd you get here?
No, my story probably is pretty similar to PJ's that we heard a few weeks back. Up until probably about 3 years ago when we bought this house. To be honest, I absolutely hated grass. I was a cut it down to the ground. Hopefully, it doesn't grow back anytime soon kind of person. I just was an outside person other than sports. But when we decided and bought this house and moved in, uh, looking at all the neighbors' yards and figuring out that pretty much most people around here are paying people to maintain their yards, which is what we also did the first year, just because that was the best option. We came from a much smaller yard, a much smaller home, so we didn't have the equipment to really maintain. Not that this yard is huge, but still, we just didn't have the equipment to really maintain this much easily. So I just continued the services that the previous owner used, and then as I'm paying for those services, I started, to get some questions as far as what am I paying for and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, at this point, I would say that I was asking pretty basic questions, and I wasn't getting any answers. Now, again, the guy cutting the grass, is how much is he really going to know about grass, or how much can you expect him to really know about grass? But I was also asking the fertilizer guy, uh, again, what I would consider now to be basic questions, and just part of it was he probably didn't know some of the answers because he just shows up and sprays, and part of it is also he's probably in a hurry. Um,
Yeah.
so, but that led me to start asking questions, which then led me to well, not led me to YouTube, but led me to looking this up on YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
as I'm sure my wife would answer, we haven't had cable TV in probably 10 years, so YouTube
Okay.
or Twitch is really my TV watching. And so for the last 3 years, pretty much from time I stop working till I fall asleep, that's my TV. And so for 3 years, it was really grass videos,
That's pretty cool.
which unfortunately this last year I figured out that there's a whole lot I need to unlearn from what I thought I learned the first couple of
Eh,
years. Um,
Mm.
I mean,
yeah.
you
I
can't
mean,
if you show up on YouTube today and you don't know any better, you're gonna go down the Umic rabbit hole. Uh, we know what channels YouTube
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is gonna
And
push you
I
to.
exactly, exactly. And I think what you're saying though is it's a situation not unlike many people, right?
Right.
And it's not that you need to unlearn it. I just think you need to take stock of the depth and the breadth of knowledge that it would take, right, to to do this at a higher level if you're a DIYer, and to certainly, especially if you're Pro Applicator, you have a much greater responsibility, right? You're not just responsible for, your family and your pets and the things that are out there currently. Now you're taking other people's situations into account, right? And so I appreciate that you understand that there's a divide there, and I always kind of call it the ceiling of knowledge, right? That there's a certain point that those folks, God bless them, good people, that they'll get you to, right? And you're just gonna bang your head against the ceiling because there's not a lot of background on the why, and understanding all the options that you have and the tools that you have at your disposal. So that's interesting that you went down that path. So let me ask this, because I know there's folks that are in your situation or maybe a little bit behind you, right, in terms of thinking about this, or maybe even a little bit further ahead. But um, what were some of those issues that you were like, man, I just really need to dig in on this and figure this out? What were some of those things that you found yourself, questioning and trying to find a deeper appreciation and knowledge for?
Um, Well, the first thing that hit was after I stopped services that I was paying for. Obviously, the first thing that hit was weeds. Um, I had a ton of oxalis that popped up all around the yard. I had a ton of spurge that popped up around the yard, and then just some various broadleaf weeds here and there. So pre-emergence was the first thing that I really had to learn about and
Oh yeah.
figure out. Um, so that's the first thing that kind of hit. I spent probably a few years there testing different products. Um, of course, I spent a lot of time with the Green County products,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and not that if you put out microgreen, you're going to get a response. Your grass is
Yeah.
going to get darker.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say over a couple of years, the more products I put out, it just, I guess I don't know if maybe my expectations were off, but I didn't see a huge return on the amount
Mm-hmm.
of products that I was putting out.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't happen overnight. At some point, a year, 2 years in, and you're like, I want this to work, but
No, and I get
again,
what. Yeah.
again, not knowing what to expect. That's kind of the circle that I ended up in.
Well, and no, I think that's a really important thing, right? In terms of what you just said there, and Ray I know would agree with me because he's huge about this. I'm huge about this. Matt tried to not talk to as many people as he could on his route, so I don't know how much he was into this, but uh, um, the setting of expectations, right? So having gone through that process yourself, right? I think you have a deeper appreciation, maybe more than even we do, right? As pros, like because before we even got to that point of setting expectations, like we had a really good idea of what worked. And I think you are coming at it from a standpoint where you can appreciate it as a homeowner and somebody who used to buy services, right? And be in their shoes. And that's a whole different animal, I think, of being able to describe something and say, hey, listen, we're going to apply this product. Here's the response that we should see. And depending on the type of product and the time of year and all those things, I mean, you could say, hey, listen, we're going to see results from this in a month or 3 months or 6 months. And here are the results that we're going to see. I think that's a powerful thing. And that's what I've seen from, some of the best turf managers, regardless of whether they're in lawn care or sports or golf or anything, are the people that, it almost seems like they're predicting the future. And I know
Right.
Ray is really good at that piece. So Ray, what would you tell your former self about that expectation setting piece? Have you evolved in that sense? And if not, I mean, have you always just had that gentle bedside manager of coming in there and saying, well, yep, this whole lawn's fucked and it's going to be, I can picture that, or I can picture you just getting old and grumpy too. I don't know.
You know, Ryan, I think I basically came from an interesting situation where I was caught in the middle in another life where people were overpromised and the underlings were then left to figure out how to make miracles happen. And barring that, I'm the one that just had to, you know, step aside, pull people on the side, and then tell it like it is. And I had to do that at a rather tender age as well.
You got your stripes
Okay.
early, Ray. You got your stripes early.
hmm hmm
I can
You know,
imagine that. I can
so
imagine.
so you know, setting expectations, and then flip side of that though is very early on I had to know what I'm talking about so that I wouldn't be
Definitely.
bullshitting anybody
And
because
man, yeah, that'll get you in
that
trouble,
is like
won't it?
yeah, that'll get you in huge trouble. So early on, I had to absolutely know, and to the point where I tell somebody A is going to happen today and you're going to see B next week. You know, I had to be that accurate with it.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, Curtis, for in your situation and just starting out, I think, you know, that's something of showing progress, right? Of just saying, hey, we're here now, and maybe you don't give them as expectations until, you know, what it's going to look like until the end of the year, right? You try to maybe not be so short term with your expectations. Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Man. Nope, not 3 for $1. Sorry. I knew I shouldn't have snorted that red pepper with the pizza tonight, Ray. It's just bad idea.
Wow.
Bad idea.
Wow.
I know.
That's tough.
Hey, clear as the nostrils. Clear as the nostrils. So,
Well,
no,
I
I think it's interesting. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Mainly, I think what it kind of the full circle, what it comes back to is you start to learn, as far as, you know, when push comes to shove, or the rubber meets the road, or any of that, it comes back to NPK, and it comes back to soil tests. So,
Yeah.
You know, knowing what you're actually deficient in, and what you need to attack with, is going to give you the best results. And again, it comes back to NPK, and your pH in there, and all that.
Yeah.
But,
the basics, right?
Yeah.
The basics.
Basics. Yeah.
I mean, I'll definitely say that is that, you know, a lot of those things that you talked about applying, and a lot of the stuff that gets put out there now, and certainly before when you were getting into it, you know, from some of those other folks. Again, nothing wrong with it. Will it work? In most cases, yeah, it will. But, you know, I think Ray and myself and Matt would all agree that in a lot of cases you're treating the signs, right, and not necessarily the root, you know, the root cause. Pun fully intended with your business name, sir. You're not treating the root cause, right? And that's a really big thing. You know, the other thing, Ray, I've said this before, and maybe it's not as polished as, you know, that part is, you know, you date the biostimulants and all that fun stuff, but you marry NPK. My good friend, Love My Lawn, who just threw us $5 in the chat for absolutely no reason. And keep your money, sir. Save it and buy me 5 Natty Lights. Okay, whenever I see you next.
Yeah.
You know, that is that's a saying he loves, and I've fallen in love with it too. And it's true, right? You can have fun and have a great time and enjoy each other's company with the biostimulants, but there's really no substance there. There's no future, right? I mean, it'll help you out a little bit, and, you know, like I said, sow your wild oats. You do some things that maybe you wouldn't do, and then Ray, you get back and you marry that old girl NPK. She'll take care of you. She'll feed you. She'll clothe you. Keep a roof over your head, right? All those beautiful things, right?
All the important stuff. And so, yeah, you fool around with all of the biostimulants and organic matter and trendy stuff, but what keeps the grass green and growing is NPK, and it does it reliably, predictably, day in, day out, no excuses.
Yep.
And
and so so as you evaluate things, I mean, I think that's something that's important too, and especially in today's climate is going to be a big part of your business is assessing what those things are. I'm glad you said soil testing, because, you know, now more than ever with, you know, $25, $30, $35 bag of, you know, what I would consider to be pretty basic run-of-the-mill fertilizer, you know, it can be a differentiator. I think it can be a huge differentiator to be able to say, we're going to do that. I know that's, you know, this other stuff's in your 5-step program, but look right here, it's on the sheet. You don't need that. You're paying for stuff you don't need. So we're here to tell you that we can do it a different way and provide just what you need and price it accordingly. So I'm glad you're saying that. So, okay, so you make this move and you decide to start the business without revealing too much or as much as you feel like, but what is this going to be something that you're going to do as sort of a side hustle for now, or are you going all in on it, or and if you are doing it as a side hustle, what's your quote unquote day job? Again, reveal as much
It,
as you want or little as you want.
no, it's fine. It is going to start out as a side hustle. For the last 20 years, I've programmed POS systems for restaurants and retail stores. So that's I still do that. Um, and it was actually my wife who, after torturing with I guess she would say grass videos for almost 3 years, she said, all this knowledge that you've gained, why don't you do something with it? Which it maybe one day it may have clicked for me. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I was so focused into just our grass.
Learning. Yeah.
Yeah, learning. And that's what's made me good at my day job, is that I want to know as much as I can, and not to be a know-it-all, but just to be able to be helpful and efficient, and be able to do a good job. I seek knowledge. That's how I was able to sit and watch grass videos for 3 years solid. um, because
Yeah, and that's
I want to know as much as I can. So I
and
think that will also then roll over into this job, or this line of work. Is obviously there's no I have figured out there's no end to learning. Either chemicals change or diseases change, or there's
it's
always
true.
something evolving all the time. So I think above anything else, that's what draws me into it, is problem solving. There's something to fix there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really what I enjoy doing. So
No, and
that's basically what
there's
led me into it.
and I think that's a fantastic approach, because that's where, like, I don't want to say anybody can make applications, do stuff, but it sure seems like sometimes it's just anybody out there. But I think the again, the differentiators that you offer and will continue to offer, right, is just that you're trying to provide the maximum amount of value to your customers, right? So selecting the right products, performing the work at the right time, and trying to always be mindful that, hey, there's always sort of a baseline of how you treat things, but also too that each customer's yard is unique and each customer's yard is different, and you have to kind of either work with them and say, hey, your yard's unique because XYZ. We can we can use that to our advantage and do these things, or you got some people that don't want to pull the trigger and don't want to make the investment sometimes, but that doesn't mean that you still can't do a good job doing the basics for them. And I think that's just so important. So okay, so you're in this mode now where this is year one, right? Like, this is the
Mhm.
first full go at it. Okay, so what take us through your process of, obviously talking about gaining the knowledge, but like, your wife, who sounds like a wonderful woman, by the way, that pushed you
Yeah.
in a good direction, that's good, is she lights this fuse and says, hey, go out and do something with this. What has been your process to get to right now? Here we are, right on the front lines, getting ready to start the 2022 season as your first season with this as a side hustle. Some of the thoughts that have gone through your head and the things that you've had to do to get this thing going.
It's just knowing, well, me and my life, this has worked out perfectly, because obviously this was probably the worst time in history to
Yeah.
start up this kind of business,
Eh.
which would mean this would be the time that I would start this business. So that's just
Are
how
you saying that you have bad
my life
timing?
goes. Yes, my life is just someone in this world has a whole lot of good luck, because they have their own and they have mine. So that's just the way my life rolls. So
Uh-huh.
it started out just not just this kind of business, but this is my first business that I've started. So I had to start with CPA, a business attorney, try to get
Yeah.
those things squared away, and then I spent a lot of time. And the thing is, the people in this industry are fantastic. I've reached out to several people across the country, and I've not been turned away once at this point.
And that's good. I mean, I think you will find that Ray would tell you the same thing, is that, it is very much well, number one, it's an incredibly small industry. You think that, oh, hey, there's every Tom, Dick, and Harry on every street corner, but man, it's a small industry. We know each other pretty well, and here's what I would say is, and Ray, maybe you can speak to this too. I've encountered a ton of people. I mean, tens of thousands of turf professionals that I've met in my career, and you can instantly tell if they're a good one or not just by their willingness to help somebody else for nothing, like literally for no other reason other than to say, listen, man, if you're better than me at some things, I'm better than you at some things, there's something we can learn from each other, and let's go figure it out. Like, let's just try, and if we don't do it this time, we'll do it the next time we see each other.
Yep. And what I have to add to that is, even within the business, if you get a good reception, that is because the person on the other side can tell you're serious about this and you're serious about doing this right. I mean, and when one of us old timers in the business sees that, my God, we are going to drop everything to make sure that we pass it on to you, because we just want to see what we know live on in the next generation of people.
And that's the interesting part, and I think that's the part that I'm glad to hear. Your embrace of learning, Curtis, is because, like, there's only so much the YouTube videos and the books and all this stuff. I mean, I hate to sound like that old school, like, you got to go to the school of hard knocks, like all that BS, like, kind of stuff. But it's true. Like, there's some things you just got to get in there and figure it out. And I'm sure you've been, working in an industry, a singular industry for 2 decades now. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of evolutions of just like what you said. Products change, systems change, hardware changes, whatever. Like, you got to evolve and adapt. Otherwise, the world passes you by. So, okay, so you go through all the business stuff, but from a turf perspective, how are you formulating your initial offer to these clients and customers, and how are you thinking about acquiring them? Like, what has been your mindset as far as that, in terms of going out and reaching out to them? Is it going and knocking on doors? Is it doing direct mail? Is it internet ads, Facebook ads? What's been sort of your approach so far, and have you found any success in any particular area so far?
Well, honestly, that's probably the biggest place I've been lacking. My plan was to have some type of advertising out, whether it be flyers or postcards. Was to have that out by November, because I figured that the big companies were going to have their mailings out in January at the latest. So I wanted to get ahead of that. Unfortunately, just with everything that hasn't worked out. But going forward, the plan will be is to have some flyers, knock on doors, direct mailing on kind of direct mailing, not necessarily through the postal service, because there you have to pick anyone that's, well, I say obvious because I've looked. Everyone may not have looked. But when you do direct mailing through the postal service, you have to pick a route, and you have to deliver to everyone on that route, whether they would be people that would qualify or not. So I will take a little more time and look up individual addresses for homes that I actually want to mail to, and I will just personally take the time to mail to those houses instead of just drop it on a whole route. One, to just save a little bit of money in the beginning, and two, really to just target the people that I want to target. And that will be just kind of working out for my home and working out. Outside of that, it's mainly just been word of mouth, just people that I know, neighbors, family, things like that. So I have a small list of people that I have ready that are going to start out right now, but mainly it'll be knocking on doors and flyers and things to try to acquire more people will be the plan.
I mean, I love that strategy just because, and I know Ray is very much a quality over quantity guy. And I think in this case, especially with being a side hustle, like you have to have something to build that portfolio up and show your skills and learn. Like just learn in a safe space, right? In a place where,
Exactly.
your friends or your neighbors or somebody that you can say, oh, there I go. There you go. Listen, I've got a plan of how I'm going to attack this, and here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to work through this, and then as that happens, right, they're going to be less judgmental, less likely to just say, oh, get the hell out of here. And I'm not saying that what you're going to do is not going to work, but I think that proving ground and building out, stuff like that, that's a great model to follow, especially when you're new and you've already got demands at home with family and your primary job, all that kind of stuff. Like you can drown yourself in work real easily, but it
Oh, for
doesn't mean
sure.
you're going to be making money. Doesn't mean you're going to be profitable or profitable in a business sense or profitable in a knowledge and experience sense. So that's good. So
Yeah.
the product piece is sort of interesting. Well, go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. It's my advice is build up slowly, and what you build on is it is all about your reputation. That is that's just what I find to be most valuable is establish your reputation, set yourself apart from your other service providers that are just doing the same things the same way and getting, I guess, the same results.
Right.
Well, and
You need to kind of set yourself apart.
I think the natural progression. Who I don't know what if this is always going to be a side hustle or if who knows, you break in and go big or go home. But I think starting in that smaller space, right, of friends, family, places where again you have some margin for not error but margin for learning, and building trust and those types of things, and figure that stuff out, and then then you go target, hey, let's go into this this here subdivision or wherever it is, right, and let's build some route density and let's just start checking off those boxes. It's always easier said than done, but I think that's it's a healthy growth strategy for somebody who's not like, I need to have 200 accounts by the end of this year. I need to have like,
Right.
that's a completely different animal, right? Versus, hey, I want to have whatever, 20 or 30 kick-ass accounts that I can point to every single one of them and be like, yep, that's mine. Yep, that's mine.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
that's
I did
the kind
that.
of thing that yep, I did. We need this. Gosh, Ray, you're killing me. You're killing me. Speaking of figurines and posters, I did have to ask. This is a little off topic, but is that a Air McNair cutout on your desk right there?
That is, yes, Eric McNair
The
figurine.
pride of
That was my guy.
the pride of Alcorn State.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was
Yeah.
my guy. It started with Warren Moon, and then evolved
Mm-hmm.
into Eric McNair there. But yeah, yep, yep.
Okay. Okay. That's cool. I watched him play in person his last game in college. I watched him. I lost in the not to bore everybody, but he was something special in college, man.
Oh
When you have an
man,
NFL player playing in a lower level, it was like man against boys. It was pretty
yeah.
special. But anyhow, I saw it and I had to ask because there are probably a majority of people watching here right now that are of a certain age that have no idea who he is, and that's unfortunate.
That's a
It's
damn
very
shame.
unfortunate. You got to go
Yeah.
onto Wikipedia. J Pink, link it up. Steve McNair, Wikipedia. It needs to be in the chat. It's imperative. One of the greatest quarterbacks who's not in the Hall of Fame yet, but should be. Should be. So, all right. Okay. So, product wise, now we talked a little bit, Stuart, about your evolution and what you first consumed and believed or purchased and everything like that. Is how how do you, as a new person in the industry, go about selecting products? Because I see this happen from time to time where there's a lot of options out there. You're sort of wide-eyed. It's same thing. I mean, it's the same thing, just in a different scale as when you're first coming onto YouTube and watching stuff for grass. What's been your experience so far in trying to get your arms wrapped around, like selecting vendors and looking at different products and comparison of prices, things like that? What have you seen so far?
Well, I think it may have been in the pre-show. But I
Okay.
mentioned that within a mile of me, just in opposite directions, I have a Site One and I have an Advanced Turf Solution. So
Oh, there you
I
go.
think for the
There you go.
most part, I think I've chosen to work with Advanced Turf Solutions more. But no matter what vendor you pick, especially when you're new, is it's good because you have a
Mm-hmm.
resource there,
Agreed.
but it's bad because you don't know what that resource's agenda is. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so dealing with a vendor, he almost had me talked into going with granular pre-emergent and for pests and everything granular. Which the one
Mm-hmm.
thing I will say is over the course of my 3 years of learning, I sprayed a lot. Now I did
Mm-hmm.
go granular. I did go with Carbon Earth stuff while when it was available. But I did spray a lot. I sprayed prodiamine. Now I'm sitting here on camera and my mind's going to go blank, but I did spray
You're
for
fine. You're fine.
grubs.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
I
Now,
am
so yeah,
comfortable
you've
spraying.
okay. Mm-hmm.
And that
And
I think that will be my plan going forward.
I think that's where you're going to see your best results. I think it's where you're going to be most profitable. And I'll be quite honest, like, just how, we sort of like once you get established in business, you have sort of a playbook, right? I'm sure in your day job, you walk into a place, you're like, oh, yep, this, I need to do that. I guarantee you
Yeah.
that those sales reps have a playbook for, okay, hey, new guy in the business, we're going to cut down the learning curve and we're going to give this guy an all granular thing because it's hard to screw up.
Just
It's this, it's that.
easy button. Yeah.
Right.
Easy button to apply. However,
However,
aha, granules have what I consider a ceiling on efficacy. And that ceiling on efficacy, that starts to not play well with my little statement of you should expect to see this in approximately a week, because then granules can introduce that uncertainty and that unpredictability into the program that for me personally, I don't like that. I really don't like that. I don't feel comfortable with it. I'm not one of those people where I can run the fertilizer spreader across the lawn and then just tell people, it'll be good. I can't do that.
Right.
and
Right.
well, that's the truth. And I think especially with the liquid side, I'm not saying go all liquid because I've heard, Ray, you'll be surprised to hear this. So in relative terms, liquid prices have not gone up nearly as much as what granular has, right? And I have heard, huge butt. I mean, a Sir Mix-a-Lot to the 10th power size butt. Okay. It is essentially this. It's that I hear sales reps saying, oh, well, hey man, you should just go all liquid this year. It's going to save you a ton of money. And I have to do the Ray laugh. Ray, when you get really cackling and just laughing somebody out of the room, I get I get that laugh going. And it's just like, okay, have you done the math on this and have you really figured it out? And
have you thought your program through? Have you thought it through? It through? I mean, because these people have no grasp of converting a liquid application to their previous granule application when I know their expectation is to, what is it, Ryan, apply up to a pound of nitrogen and so many % of that be slow release, and when you put a liquid application to those standards, what if I told you that in actual practice, the cost of that liquid application actually goes way up because delayed response liquids tend to be rather spendy per 1,000 square foot. They've always been kind of on the expensive side. Yeah, I mean, you want what they call methylene urea. You want liquid methylene urea, you're going to pay for it. You want urea triazone, you're going to pay for it. And at the end of the day, you throw down or you spray down like something that's 30 to 40% in from methylene urea, soluble. I envision that as pre-nitrogen crisis and fertilizer prices crisis. I price that kind of application out at being at least $10 per 1,000 square foot, easy. An easy 10.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and so liquid.
Well, I want to say, it blows my mind, and I guess what I'm getting at is this is, I want to say this and then ask a question is, and I think Matt said this before when we were talking to somebody in your position, Curtis, that was fairly new and, kind of had the same path to entry. And his statement was, you become a pro when you walk in and say, this is what I need, not what I want or what, you have full confidence, conviction that, hey, this is what I need. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be, sold something and say, hey, listen, like,
Right.
Again, like we've had that conversation, several shows ago back with like turfology. Hey, we use a Celiprin. It's $140 an acre. Well, hey, did you know that there's actually this new, same class of insecticide that is $100 an acre and it works just the same? Oh, let's talk about that. Like that's something that, would pique my interest or perk my attention up. And so I think, with that in mind is, you're always going to be learning different facets of the program, right? Like maybe you're not as strong on the insecticide. I'm just talking arbitrarily right now too. So
Right.
everybody listening at home, there was no test, there was no exam, or anything like that to come on the show. So we're just talking here. But in terms of that stuff, like what do you feel most confident about your program? Because we want to help you here tonight too. Of talk through things that maybe you're not, you want to get some more clarity on in terms of different facets of the program, or even just the implementation of it. When should I make my round 2 versus my round 4, like any of that stuff. But let's just talk about products for a second. What do you feel most confident in right now, and what do you think you want to learn more about to get more confident about saying, yep, that's what I need? So kind of take us on both ends of the spectrum. Where are you at right now?
That's I guess that's the only bad thing with missing out on Matt, just because he would have some notes from our meeting, and we were really looking at. We had kind of laid out two different plans there. One being more so just with ATS. Well, both of them were kind of ATS products, but one was just sticking with the ATS products, and the second option was more of an AMS route. Which is where I think he was probably, Matt being Matt, he was probably leaning more towards. The biggest thing was trying to find something very slow release for the summer. Because the first two rounds, I think we were looking at AMS. And mind you, when I refer to liquids, I think when it really comes to NPK, my plan is going to be granular on that front. But as far as weed control and pest control, that's where I would feel more comfortable spraying, just because I think that fear that Matt has, like I don't get how you maintain your edges with a granular pre-emergent. Where with the liquid I can cut in and I can take care of those edges. I don't feel confident in a granular pre-emergent on the edges, but that's just me.
You want to know how they do it? It's when you spread all over the sidewalk and you come back with your backpack blower and just get it back in about a foot, Ray. Just dress in that edge a little bit. Give it a little extra.
Yeah, you just You just kind of blow off all the overage from the driveway and the sidewalks back into the edges of the lawn. Conversely, that can backfire the other way around in that now the edges are overdosed. And, talking about edges of the lawn, for me, that is an area where I take special care of the perimeters of the lawn, because when I come to a new client, I normally see that the edges of their lawn need the most help. And that's for reasons besides just fertilizer and product application. It's because the edges tend to be the most compromised from, say, bad mowing, bad trimming.
Yeah.
The edges are areas where the grass gets really mistreated. No ball gag.
That's Ray. I told you that's why you got to have those throw pillows handy. They're not just for it's not just for the decorations and the feng shui of the room. All right, they're functional, very functional. All right, so that's good to know. So the fertilizer piece, right? It sounds like there is some confidence there, but there's also some sort of like, okay, like even though I'm confident, there's still many choices in the marketplace, and what's going to work best for me. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So the ammonium sulfate thing's interesting, and I kind of have an idea now that you say that, and especially knowing where you're at and the type of soils that you're dealing with. I think that's definitely a good route to go. I think that summertime piece, right? So I'm trying to figure that out, and knowing the vendor that you're working with, I will send this over to J Pink. There's a couple of they have like a. And listen, everybody, I'm not talking to Curtis right now. I'm talking to you at home. All right. I'm talking about a specific company because our guest has brought it up. I know this company. I know all the companies because it's my job and I know the product. So we're going to be specific and intentional with him. So this is not an advertisement for this company. If you think it is, please make this a YouTube video, special one, J Pink, and we'll put links in the description below. All right. So let me send this over to him and we could take a peek at this. Where's the label? There it is. Here it comes to you, JPing. Now, with that being said, the summer piece. So you were thinking of this as far as like a round 3 type of product, or what were you thinking? When was the timing on this, at least in your mind, and when you talked to Matt? You remember?
This was probably a 3 and a 4. So probably June and maybe beginning of June and then late July.
Okay.
Okay. And we had a lengthy conversation, and that was probably the biggest point of conversation when we had a talk about vendors and agendas, because of course everyone, and not just this is just in general, every vendor
sure
touts their slow release, and we know that most of those slow releases will all break down sooner than what they say that when they say they're supposed to break down.
And I'll show you something interesting with that in particular, of looking at a product like this that I'm about to show you, which is a really good product. So Ray, take a look at this. This is one of their longer term ones. So you got basically 90% of this is a slow release product, right? So
it's polycoat urea, and
it's duration 90 is what it is.
Okay, and here's the thing about duration 90. I actually called it in real life duration 45 with a guaranteed total release when daytime temperatures go above 85. So in hot weather, what's probably going to happen with this slow release granule is it's going to be pushing out that nitrogen as fast as it can. And if in your region it's also alternating rain and then hot the next day, I guarantee you that this granule is going to release. I guarantee that it's going to be releasing madly. I mean, but I would consider this kind of a good product overall. Like, this would be my choice for a late summer, early fall application. So I can, get a sustained feeding on the grass for the 90 days before it actually goes dormant. And just
Yeah,
let the
and
grass cruise on that nitrogen until dormancy comes. And then when you have grass cruising on a sustained feeding in the fall, your spring is a different matter because the grass has gone to bed well fed. Okay.
and that's something you can do for sure. Of on the back end of this, and here's where you have to kind of do the numbers, and especially with this, sort of being time sensitive for you. And I don't mean necessarily the timing of the apps to a lesser extent, but more so like your free time to get out and do the actual applications, right? Like, when do you piece this in? Is it evenings? Is it taking days off? Is it doing on the weekends? And how does that interfere with people that are using their yard, or whatever the case might be? So that might be something too that you look at. But I think this, in concert with the ammonium sulfate program as your base for nitrogen, it can actually work really well. I do want to talk a little bit more about these slow release, because I think this is a good product to look into. It's going to be one of their better ones, and quite honestly, like the derivatives on that label, they're using fine stuff. There's nothing cheap in there, Ray. It's all
this is good stuff. This is super good stuff. I mean, I like it.
So
this is.
I don't know if you're gonna like the price, but
right.
like fertilizers, and that's where you got to figure out, like, what's your time worth, and can it, like what Ray is saying, if you do this in round 4 and kind of bleed that through 5, what does 5 look like? Is that a sort of a budget saver app for you, where you're just going out and doing a quick check for grubs, make sure you had no breakthrough, touch up some broadleafs, and get the heck out of there? Or maybe you are doing a liquid fertilizer app in that round, something like that, something that's easy, something cheap, whatever the case might be. J Pink, let me send you this one real quick. Of course, I closed the window with J Pink. Ray, how could I do that? How could I be so
as you're doing that,
Idiot.
I just want to say that at least my plan going into it is the niche that I kind of want to find. Is I knew going into it that I didn't want to be the cheapest offering out there, because I know I understand what comes along with that. So I didn't ever want to be that. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you said that. I think here's what I'll say. I'm big on analogies. I would say it would be like, Chan, I want to play basketball, and I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan. Listen, there will never be another Michael Jordan. And in this case, in the lawn space, True Green is the Michael Jordan of doing cheap ass shitty fertilizer and pesticide applications on residential lawns. Nobody's going to touch them. You just can't do it. And I mean that because I know people that are with True Green, and I respect those guys. But generally speaking, it's tough. It's a tough place to be when they're out there, doing some of the work that they do. It's not to say they don't do good work all the time, but I've seen a lot more bad stuff in the. So with that being said, I think your positioning in the market is totally fine, and I'm glad that you said that. So now let's look at Ray. If you can describe this a little bit here for Curtis about, you see a lot of these graphs in the marketing literature, and the one thing that bugs me about these is that they are done at 68 degrees. They're done in a controlled environment at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's not necessarily what happens in real life unless you live in Southern California.
Or else you live way up like in northern Minnesota or Canada, actual Canada. then the 68-degree release curve holds more truth. But, growers of grass in the transition zone in the south, they do not see 68 degrees during the grass growing season. No, your actual temperature is 80. And when you have 80 as your average soil temperature, that's when I start to cut the actual duration of release by at least 30%. Okay? I start to cut it. And so instead of it being 90, in real life, we're looking more like 45 to 60 actual.
And that's what you'll find, Curtis, is that looking at these curves, they look pretty and they look, real gentle, and the trajectory's nice, and it seems like, oh yeah, hey, look, that's nice and hey, like whereas in our Midwestern climate, right? Like if you have a rainy year, this stuff could be gone in 4, 5, 6 weeks. I mean, it's very much moisture dependent, and then as temperatures go up, it it continues to release even more. So I think that is something that it's worth playing around with in my mind. I think what would be interesting, and you're small enough now that maybe you can do a little bit of testing and say, okay, hey, listen, I'll stick these two lawns here on that product that we just showed, like 25-310, and let's see what happens, versus me basically making an additional granular application with the ammonium sulfate, right? So instead of turning 1 into 2, we're turning instead of 2 into 1, we're turning 1 into 2, and let's just see what happens, right? Like kind of evaluate those results, how long that stuff runs out and lasts for. And I know that this is going to be a question from a research perspective, like not like a big deep dive university paper, but more of applied testing for the universities and stuff like that, where they're just saying, hey, efficacy trial, does this work or does that work, right? I think you're going to see a lot more of this because Ray, I just saw something from our friend, our way in the distance friend, not like our friend, not like we're going to go over his house and have beers, friends, but Doug Soldat posted today, University of Wisconsin. He's like, he looked at fertilizer prices and he was like, wow. He's like, I knew that they were going up, but I didn't realize they were that bad. So, I think even those folks who are usually kind of out of touch with things on that side of things, of just the business aspect, are starting to take notice that, wow, like this is going to be a real issue for folks. And, for anybody like us, big time sports field managers, golf courses, like everybody's going to feel this. And so I would suspect that we'll see at least some type of, efficacy trials and things like that this year, just to sort out and say, hey, here's how to be a little bit smarter with those choices. And I think that'll be a big thing. So, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So on the other pieces then, like, you mentioned weed control at the top, and as far as that goes, and some of the insecticide issues, grub prevention, everything like that, what's your level of comfort? And even if it's something else that you want to explore, what are some of those questions, right, that you have and want to address here tonight?
Well, obviously being in northern, as far northern Indiana as you can be, because the border with Michigan is literally just right down the street. Basically dealing with the vendor, he basically just rolled out to me a 3-way that they offer, and then adding in triclopyr. Now I know that I remember Ray mentioning something a few weeks ago that I wanted to ask again. I think, Ray, you mentioned that you don't use 2,4-D with homes that have pets or kids, I think you said.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So you avoid. Okay.
I avoid 2,4-D based weed control, and you mentioned utilizing triclopyr. It just so happens that a lot of the problem weeds that you run into in the transition zone in a cool season lawn are the very weeds that are most responsive to a triclopyr application in the early spring, or else another triclopyr application in fall before dormancy. So what I'm going to tell you is, I think I said this previously, in that 2,4-D based weed control was a fantastic thing when it came out in 1945, because at that time there was no good way to control dandelion and plantains in a lawn selectively that was not expensive or more toxic than the 2,4-D. But since then, 21st century, I think we have smarter and more effective options on the table now. I think we do.
Wholeheartedly
So I'm-
agree. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I'm guessing that you purchase a lot of individual pieces then, because like the 3-way I know would have 2,4-D. Trying to think of what else would be in there, but
Okay,
I'm guessing you buy
you're
just individual pieces.
You know what, Curtis? You said it, because, for example, when I go to a lawn and they tell me, oh, my kids, my cats, my dogs, for example, then I immediately note that, and I don't automatically throw in a 3-way type product into the tank. Then I have the individual components, and I look at my weeds and I say, yes, this weed is a triclopyr candidate. This weed is a carfentrazone candidate. And I'm literally, this is something that Matt kind of picked up from me, in that I just start to mix and match individual components according to what I actually need. And so I'm not spraying down stuff that doesn't benefit the lawn and doesn't benefit the individual situation.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
that's something too that I think is lost on people, because here's a classic example, right? Is that I see some lawn care operators that effectively choose their treatments based on what everybody else is doing. Like, just go with the crowd and say, oh, hey, we got to do weed control, so it's 3-way and that's it. And, well, why are you doing that? Well, because it's what everybody does. Well, is there any other reason? Well, because it's cheapest. And it's like, well, wait a second. Like, what happened to going with the most effective thing, so like you get the best result, and you explain that to the customer if it costs a little bit more, which I know is always palatable or effective in getting the sale. Maybe those aren't your customers to begin with. Or you go out there, and I'll tell you, nobody wants to get the call back. Nobody wants to get, I want to speak with your manager because I've got dandelions out here still. Well, had we used a better product, Ray, would we be in the same boat?
Yeah.
So,
and
J Pink, go ahead while Ray's talking. Throw up this label real quick. Go ahead, Ray.
yeah, because, for example, I can name some weeds that I find conventional 3-way to be absolutely mediocre on. Number 1, clovers. Number 2, oxalis. Number 3, spurge. I find that conventional 3-way is mediocre. On the other hand, for those weeds, if I'm looking for something that I can just grab and throw in the sprayer without needing to, play Walter White, when I'm looking for a 2,4-D free alternative, I actually like that stuff right up there on the screen right there. That
Okay,
Power
so
Zone.
talk to Curtis about this. This is a PBI Gordon product. Again, not shilling for them. I have no stock in PBI Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you want to buy it, like, click on the link in the description below that doesn't exist, and we're not going to get paid for it.
Yeah.
But, okay, so, Ray, why did PBI Gordon formulate this product, right? What did they take out, in case somebody doesn't pick up on it? Not Curtis. I think he's already done that. But folks that are listening at home or thinking it's like a podcast and maybe aren't looking at the label, what do they take out, why, and how effective is this product without, quote-unquote, the star of the show? Lay it on us.
Okay. What happened is PBI Gordon formulated a alternate three-way with a carfentrazone kicker with MCPA, methylchlorophenoxyacetic acid. And MCPA is actually 2,4-D's predecessor that was first discovered in England. But MCPA hits most weeds equally as hard as 2,4-D does. Only thing is that it's a little more expensive. However, MCPA doesn't carry the same biological baggage as 2,4-D does.
Why?
So, why? And the reason why is because the manufacturing process is different. Because, by the way, Ryan, did you know that 2,4-D manufactured and used within the United States, or to be used within the United States, has to pass screening for dioxins?
I did not know
Did
that,
you know
but it
that?
makes sense.
No, it has to pass screening for dioxins. But MCPA, due to its manufacturing process, is extremely unlikely to contain traces of dioxins. And dioxins are one of the products or byproducts that are responsible for 2,4-D's reputation. But going back to weed control, MCPA substitutes in extremely nicely for 2,4-D. And so I've even used that power zone formulation as well on high traffic public areas. I've done it where I'm spraying, a couple acres worth of lawns that are essentially, public grounds, and I don't want to risk the conventional trimec or three-way type formulations because I never know. Somebody's kids might be touching the grass barefoot or barehanded. Somebody's dog might be walking on that grass after it was sprayed. So at that point, Power Zone fit the bill. And by the way, that Power Zone application absolutely decimated the weeds. It just absolutely
So here's my question: is if Curtis wanted to be mindful of this, and now budget wise, completely different price point, So I'll do the math really quickly and come up with a per acre price and or per 1,000 square foot price real quick. But in real terms, right? Like, are you giving up? Are you seeding anything? By using a Power Zone product, basically it's got a kicker in it too, and there's others that don't have the kicker in it. Are you giving anything in terms of weed control? And what if you are, what would you have to be mindful of? What specific species of weeds?
Okay. The only little caution that I would have to add is that the Power Zone, because it doesn't contain any triclopyr, may be a little weak on clover. But, okay, if you are not trying to be the True Green or the Valley Crest of lawn care, then you can put up a premium broadleaf weed control program. And you know what I'd be adding to that power zone formulation? I'd probably
What's
be
that?
adding up to 16 ounces per acre of triclopyr ester to the label rate of power zone, and then spraying out both of those as a tank mix.
Wow.
And
There you go.
and I don't think the clover will survive that application. Neither will the wild violets or the chickweed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's gonna hit pretty hard, and I would not be so worried about fight. Like I don't think you're gonna see anything major out of something like
No,
that. So let me do. Go ahead.
Well, and
there's
that
actually
that picture, that lawn picture that JP Pink put up a while back, that actually is not my yard, but that will be out of the yards that I have now. That's obviously
Yep.
going to be my worst yard to deal with, and will be the
What a
one
great
that I'll
case
use
study.
for pictures. Yes, that will be the one
Yeah,
that
it
I
is.
use for
Yes.
pictures if I can, when I get this thing turned around. So
You know what, Curtis? Seeing the weed that is present there, I'm already telling you that conventional low cost 3-way would be the last thing that I would deploy on this lawn. I would be going straight
spin
into
and tire.
the triclopyr. Yeah, I'd be going straight into the
Yeah,
triclopyr or blends containing triclopyr, because this is a pretty good case of it. I believe violet, isn't it? This is a pretty good case of
That's
it, isn't
wild
it?
vinyl. Yeah.
Oh my
It's,
gosh.
ground ivy, and this is
Ground
just.
ivy-
I mean, obviously, I'm in a small spot, but that it is. This was actually, they were actually a True Bean customer, and was ones that questioned whether they got all of their applications or not, and eventually just got rid of them. And
Quit.
so, yeah, so now this is trying to literally take over the yard. So it's going to be a tough one, I think. But like I said, this will be a case study to get this turned around.
For sure. For sure.
So let's see here. 45 divided by. Sorry, I'm doing math here. Yeah, so I mean, you are, more than double your price per thousand. You're about $1, coming up with about $1.33 a thousand on the power zone, roughly, and about 53 cents or so, depending on what if you're buying generic. This is name brand like Trimec Classic. So yeah, I mean, there's a significant difference in a per thousand. So let's just say a 5,000 square foot lawn. About one application, hopefully here at, what do we say, Ray? So a little, but just call it $1 difference. We're estimating by a lot. $5 difference on an application, and again, selling that difference. Hey, what you were $5 more, and that's a chance that, and it depends. I mean, I think a lot of your deals are going to be those handshake deals, that personal relationship you build. You can worry about when it becomes so big that you can't always have those conversations, but it's a way to impart, hey, listen, we're not the cheapest, and here's why. A lot of companies will use this particular product. There's nothing wrong with that product, except for it's not going to handle these weeds that you have right here in your lawn. Boom. That lawn, that weed is like wild violet. When you start dropping knowledge like that, like you were built, that's what they call in marketing social proof, right? It shows that, hey, I know what I'm talking about, and I know, and I'm demonstrating that to you. And then you can hit them with the haymaker of, hey, $5 more, and obviously when you price in some profit and everything like that, it's going to be a little bit more than that. But here's why we're $10 more on this app. Let's just say double it. Here's why we're $10 more, because you know what? It's going to get done.
We're going to get it.
Yep. Give me that chance. Give me the $10 to make an impression. And if not, I mean, and here's something too. I mean, on some of these first ones to prove it, I'll give you your money back. I'll give you the $10 back. I'll take you to B-Dubs on a Tuesday night, a 2 for $10 wings thing, like whatever. Buy a couple of those ass beer, whatever. So, you can't do that though if it's J Pink's lawn because it's J Pink more. Remember, I love you, J Pink. Don't mute my mic. Okay. Anyway,
yeah. Well, that's it's a matter of once there's nothing wrong with being known as the person that costs more, as long as you're also the person that always uses the premium products and is not dealing in the ultra cheap, low budget stuff that isn't going to deliver results. And when I see that lawn with all of that ground ivy and violet in it, I'm thinking, if you run three-way on it, you can run a lot of three-way on it and not make a dent. And not make a dent. I mean,
no, and I mean, I'll tell you that I have people call me up all the time, and I mean, all walks, right? And people that mean well, but just aren't using those right products. And hey, man, I sprayed three-way on this clover, and it just ain't working. What do you think's wrong with it? Well, let's talk about product choices and why we select different products. And it's like I get so fed up, and I'm sorry. It's like listen, Curtis, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed in these folks. I know they can do better. I know they got it in them. They just got to, make that choice that you are making to go a different direction. So, all right. So we talked a lot about the weed control piece. What about insecticides? Anything else on that side of things? And then before we do that, I'd like to, J Pink, if we can open the phone lines here in a few moments. Gentlemen that are listening, real quick, if you are, I'll say this is we did want to do this a little bit special tonight because I think this is a unique situation, and if you want to call in, if you are a lawn care operator, new, old, or in the middle, and want to offer this gentleman some of the things you wish you had told yourself in the beginning, I would love to hear it, and I'm sure he would too. There's always room for encouragement, and just like Ray and I said, we're all trying to help each other here. There's plenty of a word to go around and eat. So if you have something like that, please go ahead and dial over here. J Pink will throw it up in the chat, and you can take a look at that. But let's real quick talk about other questions in terms of the insecticide piece or anything else that we might have missed. And we're not done yet, but just kind of rounding out that segment on the product piece.
I can say just from watching the other shows, that's one thing I still question is as far as pests. Because of course, when the camera's in your face, your mind goes completely blank. But I know I have a chemical in the garage that I bought last year to deal with grubs, and it is what's the most common? That probably is not working as effectively nowadays.
Is it a
imidacloprid?
Imidacloprid.
I've got imidacloprid.
Okay.
In there. So I'm wondering what should I use? I mean, we do deal with a lot of grubs around here.
Yeah.
I don't think we get many armyworms. I don't think we got many armyworms up this far north last year. I don't think.
Yep.
But grubs are a big issue.
However, Curtis, I'm going to say this about imidacloprid. Imidacloprid was another example of what I consider a breakthrough product when it was first introduced in the 1990s. However, I consider that very much first generation, and since then, a better product has been brought onto the market. A much better product.
Caller. Turn your radio down now. Do it. Look in my eyes. I'm the captain now. All right. Something like that. All right. Are you listening to us? Can we hear you?
I hope so.
Blink twice if you're safe. Okay, good. All right. All right. So, caller, who do we have the pleasure of speaking to here this evening?
Steve Darcy again.
Oh, Steve Darcy, sir. it's good to hear your voice, and thanks for calling in. Well, obviously, how long? I know we talked, and I can't remember if I asked you or not during that last conversation we had. How long have you been in the business for yourself?
21
Yourself.
years now.
Woo, boy, man.
Ooh.
We had barely survived Y2K when you got into this. My goodness, how, and now here we are in 2022, and look what's become of us. But, what can you offer in terms of if you could go back to 2001, Steve Darcy, and have a 2-minute conversation? What would you lay on Steve Darcy of 01?
I think being true and honest to yourself and doing what's right, and I think he's right on the right path of doing that, would be most important, and that his customers will find that that loyalty.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing is like you're always going to have that churn, right, of people that want to hop in and hop off for the lowest price. Hey, I found a guy to do it for $10 cheaper. Bye. Like, okay, bye.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't worry. You don't worry about those.
Last time, and I think if he's paying attention and doing what's right, then folks will follow him in that same direction.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. That's good advice. Steve, thanks for calling. Thanks for having a discussion with Curtis and with 2001 Steve Darcy. I know they both appreciate it very much.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
Look at that. See?
And not to get away from pests, but I do have a question. And one thing that's driven me with this is, like, what do you see when the fertilizer guy leaves his paperwork during the summer? What do you see listed on there? Spot sprayed weeds. Now, I've watched guys in my yard, and I've watched guys in the neighbor's yard zipping around at least 5 miles an hour. And maybe it's just my eyes, but I'm thinking, can you really see weeds at 5 miles an hour in a yard?
No. No. I mean, because
Ray,
here's the
did you eat that ribeye? Could you eat that ribeye in 30 seconds and taste it, Ray? Could you?
No.
Maybe you could.
No way.
Maybe.
No way. And the thing is that in my decades in the business, it is not the big weeds that always get you in trouble. It is the small weeds, because here's what I'm faced with. I'm faced with lawns that are taken over by prostrate spurge, for example, Ryan. And prostrate spurge doesn't grow tall, right? Yeah, isn't that fantastic stuff? Isn't that fantastic stuff?
Would be the death of me.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
But Curtis, there is a way out, and your way out is
go ahead. We'll
skip.
Go ahead and answer, J Pink, and I'll tell him to hold.
Yeah.
Hold. Here we go.
Skip
caller, please hold. Hold. Go ahead, Ray.
You skip.
Finish your thought.
You skip the cheap 3-way, and when you have a lawn that's infested with spurge, you had better get down an application of triclopyr broadcast. And the reason why you broadcast it is because the best time to catch spurge is when it's still in the 2 to 4 leaf stage. That's the best time to catch it. And you're not going to catch it if you're zipping around spot spraying and not seeing it. Whereas one of my mentors in the business taught me something in that he told me, by the time you see the weed where it's emerged above the turf canopy, you're actually too late. You should have nailed it when it was still the 2 to 4 leaf recently germinated weed that is not exactly visible in the turf canopy. And I ain't going to be on my hands and knees parting the grass to the sides, trying to look for each 2 to 4 leaf weed. I'm not doing it. I'm not that nuts.
Just, just me asking, but what would you charge for something like that, Ray?
You can't pay me enough.
Oh, come on. Everybody's got a price. And speaking of somebody having a price to getting on all fours, it's our caller right now. Mr. B, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Oh, good. What would be your price to get down on all fours and part the grass and look for 2 to 4 leaf weeds? So what would be the billable rate on that, if I might ask?
Billable rate per 1,000 square feet would be roughly about $500.
$500. Listen, I've got some cash in my
you know,
stock.
if I'm mowing it
For
like
what?
Ray at like green tight, if I'm mowing it like Ray at green tight, yeah.
If you're not Manscaped, I get that it's going to be a higher charge. That's just the way it goes. All right, so hey, listen. How long have you been in business? And if you could go back to, I couldn't even imagine a young Mr. Beebe, but and how crazy that individual would be. But what would you tell your previous self about getting started in this business?
One, I started when I was 12 with my uncle, who was the extension agent for the University of Georgia back in the 80s, when he transferred to Clemson. And he's taught everything that I've ever learned. But when I actually got into business for myself about 7 years ago, the only thing I can say to myself is, I wish I would have done it sooner.
Really?
Yeah, because ever since like that first ever side job, full landscape install that I've done, I've been hooked since then. And then it's been an addiction to me.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you one more question here. I'll follow up and I'll get you out of here so we can get some other calls in. But what would you tell yourself? What have you learned over the years that you might give Curtis some advice on? Some of those tough situations, tough customers, tough days, whatever. Like, what are you looking to pull you through on the shitty days? Let's just say.
Well, back then I couldn't drink, but now I can drink, and I'm like, okay, don't cuss this motherfucker out.
Man, hey, listen. I appreciate your honesty and the fact that you went full on that. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you real soon because you're going to be on the program here real soon. So we're looking forward to that. So all right.
Yep.
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
Can't wait.
3 weeks. Can't wait. I can't wait.
Can't
all right,
wait.
So
can't wait, man.
It's going to be, dude.
I'll bring all the energy I can.
That's a lot. It's going to be a lot. All right. Have a good night, sir. We appreciate it. So, okay, getting back into a little bit here while we're waiting for our next call. And if you do call in and you get through, just hang out for a second if we're talking. No big deal. That insecticide piece, Ray, can you dive a little bit deeper? I will vouch that grubs are definitely an issue up here. Do you want to explain really quickly, the pros and cons? Obviously, a Acelepryn comes at a much higher cost, but what are just the pros and cons in terms of efficacy and maybe a little bit of the best practices that you found in using both those two products in a lawn care setting?
Okay. The Acelepryn or chlorantraniliprole is, of course, a different product entirely in terms of how well it works on grubs, because for one thing, that product is not as mobile in the soil. Meaning, if you spread it out or spray it and it rains, it's probably going to stay in that lawn where you placed it. And that then parlays into longevity regarding you put down this application and it's probably still going to be there months later when you actually need it. And the other factor that's a plus and a minus for that product is that it is a much more targeted chemistry, in that, for example, it is not considered a toxic product to bees and other pollinators, versus imidacloprid and all related chemistries are all over the news every single day as being the killer of bees, right? So it's, that's also in your favor, because I've even had to answer some pretty pointed questions about, am I applying the product that kills bees? I have had to answer that.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yo,
Caller?
what's going on?
What? No, what's going on with you?
What's happening?
I know who we're talking
What
to.
is it?
Mr.
What
Coleman.
is
What
up?
is up?
What's up?
So listen.
You know who this is?
What? Oh, who is it? You tell me. I want to hear. I want to hear you
This
say
is
it.
Cam. You know it.
Oh, it says Cam. I thought it
Oh,
was. I thought it was
Cam.
Telly.
Elevated.
It sounded like. Oh
Cam.
man, Elevated Lawnscapes is here. My goodness. All right, listen.
You know it.
All right, you are in. You're in an interesting boat, because you treat this like a job. You really do. I don't know how you pay yourself. You're not paying yourself enough. I'll tell you that. You're not paying yourself enough.
You're right. You're right about that.
But pay yourself. Hey, you pay yourself an attaboys. You just reach. There you go, like that. So listen, I want to hear it. Like, what advice do you have? You're coming at it from a little bit different angle, but I know that you're a sage and you have good wisdom. So what would you want to share with Curtis here about his new venture and where he's going?
So hopefully, trying to be there where Curtis is in a little while. So I got aspirations to get there. But for one, I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure I tell Curtis, hey man, we've been talking since you started this venture. So I'm glad to see you get there. Congratulations, and wish you all the success. One of the things I will say is stay true to yourself. Stay true to what you've been doing. You're doing it the right way, and I believe don't be the true green. Hey, if it costs more, if you got to charge them more, do what you got to do. Your customers appreciate it. It's all about the results.
Thank you, sir. I know you had to get in there. It's about the results. I know you had to get that in there, but it's true.
Wise words. Wise
Hey,
words.
yep.
Okay.
It's about the results.
Wise words.
That's good stuff. Hey, Cam, thanks for calling, man. I really appreciate it. And like I said, there's a bunch of guys here, I'm sure, that are a little bit further behind where Curtis is at, that would love to do something like this. And really just, it's a big thing putting yourself out there. It's a big thing to try and just, make the effort to even get to this point, let alone sink your teeth into it and go. That's one thing that, we talk a little bit more about it on the Burn and Return podcast, Ray, Matt, and I, but we're all a product of that type of environment, right? That we all went out there and hung our shingle and tried to do it our own way, and somehow we're still doing it, and we're
still around.
It's fun and it's wild. It's exhilarating. It's scary. It's all those things, and you hang on and you keep going, and like all these guys have said, you bank on your reputation, you bank on what you learned, and you just try to keep getting a little bit better. And so I think that's really important. So Cam, I can't wait to hear about that next step in the journey, man. That's going to be fun. Can't wait.
It should be soon. Cam is one of those people that that answered when I reached out, and so we've been talking in the background and pushing each other to help get me to this point, and Cam will be here soon. So So I'm excited for him. As excited as I am for me, I am for him. So because I know what kind of work he'll do. So
Man, I
we'll
can't
get
wait.
there.
I can't wait. I was gonna say I can't wait to see giant pictures of giant billboards up that have To the Roots lawn care all over northern Indiana. I can't wait to see Cam's billboard up, elevated landscapes all over the place there in the armpit of the United States. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that weather-wise. Hey, listen, what's the old saying about the transition zone, Cam? You can grow all the grasses, just none of them well. That's it, right?
Can't grow none of them
great.
well.
It's a great place to try and get paid to try and just keep on chugging, man. So you got a great business model ahead of you, because always going to be somebody trying to grow it and somebody killing it, and you'll always have business that way. So appreciate it, man.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate you calling in tonight.
As long as you can keep it green at least three to 4 months out of the growing season, I think you're all right around here. They'll keep paying.
Listen, that should be. I wish somebody would do that, Ray. Somebody should. If there's somebody that's on the fence about, we were talking in the pre-show about what to name your lawn care business and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if anybody's done this one yet, but I think 3 months of fun is a great lawn care business name. 3 months of fun lawn care. That should be it.
And
that's it.
And you know what? Ryan, that could well be the story of my life. 3 months.
No doubt. That's really you. That is.
Yeah, 3 months, because I can count on June, July, and August being relatively stress-free. The rest of the year, I'm a little bit of a nervous wreck.
Well, and hey, listen, you get to take that Hawaii vacation for those other 9 months. I do not want to hear about it. Okay, you were not.
Hawaii vacation? What Hawaii vacation? The other 9 months. The other 9 months is expensive fungicides, nematicides. And the weed control.
Listen. You got beautiful women. I mean, Tom Selleck and his chest hair is probably still out there somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on in Hawaii. You should be proud. So, well, man, that's cool. So, Cam, we appreciate you calling in tonight, man.
All right, it was good talking to y'all. Congrats again, Curtis. And man, can't wait to see what you're doing out there in the field.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks,
all right,
man.
y'all take it easy.
Man, look at that. Again, you're not going to find that kind of support elsewhere, and we really appreciate it. I think that's the one thing that I don't know. People when they come on here, I hope they're encouraged. And dude, I'll tell you what, man. Like getting this chance to sit here and know, and I'm not blowing smoke right now. This is the truth. Is we were all beginners once. Ray was a beginner. Ray felt the same pains you did, the same awkwardness, the fan. Shut up, Pink. I can remember like no YouTube either. Like you had to read a book and go out and do it. I mean, this was like Funk and Wagnall's Britannica encyclopedia type stuff. And I don't know, man. I just have I have a deep respect for people that that choose this as what they want to do and find joy in it, and again just embrace that path of what you said, man. Like I'll go back and watch the video because I felt myself smile when you said, hey, I just want to keep learning and keep growing. And it's like, man, if you got that mindset, you're gonna be fine. Like you are gonna be fine. You're gonna have some dips in the road, you're gonna have things that don't go right, whatever, but as far as this business goes, man, you can never be done learning, and you can never think, oh, I've got it all figured out. Because I'll tell you, it's true though. It really, I mean,
right.
Those are the most dangerous times in this business. Is somebody that says, "Oh, I got it all figured out," right, Ray?
Right.
And we're guilty of it. I've done it. Ray's done it. Matt's done it. And then Mother Nature swings back, and she says, "No, I don't think so." And so I think
you will be humbled today. You will be humbled today. I mean, that is the truth. I mean, and so the way that I look at everything is, I always think there's a possibility of things going sideways. And I always tell myself and my customers to their face, you know what? I have been wrong about stuff before, so just kind of hang on. I tell people that.
Oh,
Eh,
I mean,
you know,
I'll be
I
honest.
tell
One
'em.
of the most powerful things, man, is just, and I've done it on here on this show, is, tell people about my failures. I mean, I am not up here, and I don't think anybody is. I think Matt's very honest about it. Ray, you're very honest about it. Is like, we fail constantly, and but we're learning from it, and like you built up that relationship and that trust, and I think what all these gentlemen have said so far is very powerful in that regard. Is like, if you do a good job, you say what you're going to do, or do what you say you're going to do, and build that loyalty, build that trust. Like, you can make some mistakes and be okay. Like, you can explain it and say, hey, listen, okay, hey, here's what happened, here's what hey, here's what we're going to do to fix it, and this is going to be the path. And I think that's huge, and that's huge for not only the just having personal integrity, pride, whatever you want to call it, right? But for your business, right? That's a long term investment in your business, is making those little things right, because a lot of times they don't. So, all right, I've droned on enough. But what other questions, thoughts do you have? Anything else that you want to cover here as we we sort of round third base here, headed towards home? Into our after show. Any other thoughts or questions that you had about the business side of things or the agronomic side of things that you wanted to touch on here this evening?
One question that I was going to have was, and there's no good answer, but just, I guess, trying to gauge opinions and thoughts is
Sure.
a big thing that I'm still battling is pricing. Now, I'll say,
Okay.
without going at specific numbers, but I'll just say, we'll just pick
Yeah.
10,000 square feet. I got a pricing sheet
Okay.
from my vendor, which I brought down with me and put in front of Matt. And minus the cuss words, Matt said, well,
I'm hearing him
yeah.
right now.
He basically, I mean, he gave me a ton of knowledge and explained, like, look, you got insurance, you got truck payment, truck insurance, trailer payment, trailer insurance, paying yourself. I'll just say, conservatively, just on a 10,000 square foot lawn, the price between what the vendors said, hey, charge this, Matt, and Matt, was probably about $25 difference in application.
Yeah.
And I got, there's a huge company who's not a national company, but they're a local company here, but they are huge. Just by luck, I got something in the mail from them, and I'll say that their price before the 5% prepaid discount was probably about halfway in between that vendor price and Matt's price. So my thought is when you're not going after people when it comes to price, is how do you handle that? Do you just act like those cheaper people don't even exist, or do you confront it head on? How do you deal with that? Do you not bring it up, not even mention it unless the customer mentions it, or because again, it's not just using better products, but again, taking the time. I know when it comes to these bigger companies that obviously for them, it's all, well, everyone, time is money, but they're trying to get
Sure.
on and off a lawn as quick as possible from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. I don't necessarily want to have to do that. I want to be able to take the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to conquer the world. I'm not trying to make all
No,
the money in the world. I want a good end product, end result, and charge a price that I can feel good about for both sides. So
I
trying to
get what you're saying.
find
I get
where
what you're
that
saying.
is in there. That's been my toughest battle, internally in my head, on trying to come up with that. But that's my main question: is how do you deal with those
So
cheaper competitors? Do you just ignore them, or do you, go at it full steam in every conversation?
So I think a few things, right? So three things really. Number one is you got to know the market that you're going into. And I mean, like, down to the street, right? You got to know, okay, hey, is this an area that's saturated by price driven, commodity driven type of competition, or is this a place where quality is valued, right? You go into those places, and I think you try to target those. And I think that's sort of the second evolution of your business. The first one is friends, family, referrals, right? Get started again where you can feel safe and have, a little bit of leeway, to the good and the bad. I don't want people to think that I'm saying that, oh, hey, go mess up your neighbor's or your uncle's yard. Like, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying, like,
Right.
you have an opportunity to shine in those places, right? So, um, that being said, I think targeting your market's going to be really, really crucial in getting out of those places where, like, hey, listen, like a first time home buyer, type of neighborhood is probably not your prime real estate because they're thinking, oh, I've never had a lawn. I don't know how much it costs. Well, I'm going to go with the cheapest thing because I just want to get something going, right? I just want to get something off the ground. I think the other thing that could be a good tool to use, right, when you start these marketing efforts. And we talked a lot about this on the live Collins show a few weeks back with Steve Darcy. And one of the things I recommended to him was just a simple qualifying question, right? What's the number one thing that's most important to you? Is it price? Is it the overall quality of your turf? Or is it environmental concerns, pet safety, that whole, bowl of wax, right? So I think if you know that, then okay, hey, am I walking into a quality conversation? Am I walking into a price conversation? Am I walking into I don't want you to kill my dog and my kids conversation? Because those are three different like archetypes or what we call avatars, right? That you're talking to in the marketplace. And I think knowing that going in, and even it just to start, like, it doesn't need to be some fancy form on your website or some email BS. It could just literally be a question. Hey, I just want to understand, your needs. Can you tell me what's the most important, facet of your lawn care program? Is it price? Is it overall quality of your turf, right? Short and long term, or is it, environmental concerns related to, the health and safety of the environment, your pets, your kids? Simple qualifying question. And then I'm not saying you have to have a script either, but you know how to push the value, right? The value propositions that you have for each one of those. So for instance, like in the environmental space, maybe, you switch out of imidacloprid this year or next year or something like that and say, hey, actually we use acelepryn, which is, the most safe insecticide that we can use as a grub preventative. It's a little bit more expensive, but here's why. It's because we're, conscious about the environment. We're conscious about pollinators, your kids, your pets, and all that sort of thing. We want to make sure to do it. We use products that don't contain 2,4-D because we know 2,4-D can be, harmful to kids and pets. Like, there's a variety of ways that you can go down and show that value, right? And then also be ready for those pushback pieces or the objections of, well, okay, what about, are you using, there's a variety of different things that you can come in. It's like, okay, hey, on the price piece, why are you $10 higher on your Grub application? Well, here's why. We use the most environmentally.
This is why.
It crosses over, right? It crosses
Right.
over into different ways. So you build out, again, the drivers of value, right? The value props that you have on all those pieces, and then anticipate what the pushback's going to be, anticipate what the objections are, and how to meet those. And I think what you'll find is that there's a lot of crossover between your value props and then dealing with those objections that come in. The last thing I'll say is even if you're not, and it's a trap, right? Hey man, like, I'm not worried about bottom line, price. And so, I'm just going to charge something pretty healthy that's above market and I know I'll make money. Please, I know
Be
you won't do that
careful.
because
Be careful.
you're a prepared guy. And listen, you install point of sale systems, you get it, right?
Right.
If those people aren't making money, you're installing more point of sale systems and you're not installing more of them. So I think you understand that piece of just knowing your numbers. You really need to know your numbers. I will send over to you. I'll have JP. Actually, I think we have your email address. I will send over a little sheet that I help people use from time to time that helps them sort of figure out those costs and put them into play. So you can just sort of figure out your baseline, right? Like, here's my overhead, here's my cost, here's my labor. And then I break out profit separately so that you can sort of see all those different variables factored in. And then you can add in your product, right? Because those are all the numbers you need to know. Your product's easy. I mean, ATS is going to tell you what that's going to cost. Site One's going to tell you what it's going to cost. It's all the other pieces, right, of trying to figure that out and go through it. So I think something like that will be helpful, and I'm happy to share that with you, and you can make a copy and kind of mess around with it yourself. But Ray, any thoughts there on the whole, like, my competitors are cheaper than me and I know it, and the customer's going to figure it out maybe now when they're getting all the quotes back, or maybe they get a flyer in the mail, 3 months into me, being their lawn care provider, and they're like, "Hey man, what the hell, $29.95 for the first app and you're charging me $55? Like, what's going on here?" So, I know
Okay.
you don't deal with the commodity lawn market, but I'm sure you've thought about it before. How would you deal with that situation?
Ryan, I frequently have to explain myself regarding, okay, my last turf person doesn't cost as much as I do. I have to explain and lay out why. I have to tell them why. And, you just kind of laid out some issues to point out, like, for example, quality. And number two, thought and consideration for the environment, for example, because some of the stuff that I'm leaning towards and telling you to, consider, I know it's not the cheapest product on the market, for example, but I know that it has, it checks off two boxes, and one is product performance, and number two is it's a little more advanced than what I consider the old standards. And so I actually do deal with the commodity lawn market because those people are my direct competitors, and I often have to explain myself to people as to why do I cost way more than the normal. I have to explain the extreme price discrepancy.
Well, and the other thing
So
I'll say this. I'll say this too is I see folks when they figure out their cost aren't. People are always like, "Man, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers." Well, you need to know what buckets the numbers go into, right? Like, anything with
Mhm,
math is just manipulation of numbers, right? So, uh,
mhm.
I see folks that aren't, have their product cost and things, or excuse, not their product cost, but their overhead, and they figured out everything that goes into their cost, right, of actually doing that application. But sometimes they're just figuring on, the time it takes them to do the application. They're not figuring on, hey, what did it take me to come out and sell this job? What was my cost of acquisition for this customer? Those types of things that you also have to build into that price. Or, as you get a little bit more established, and we talked about this on that call-in show too with Mr. Lush Lawns, Aaron, our good friend, right? The guy that snuck Ray into the back of a bar in Louisville with no ID. Ray, you darn lawbreaker, you. But as he so successfully has done is implement a paid consultation model, right? To where he's qualifying people just based on, hey, do you want to pay me whatever it is, 60, $75 to come out here, actually do a soil test and give you a real picture of what's going on, what the expectations are, and what your plan should be. And you know what? If you don't want me to do it, here's your soil test, and here's my plan. Take it to other people and have them price it out, and sayonara. I've done my duty. Maybe they come back to you, maybe they don't. Who knows? But I like that model a lot going forward. Of not of doing it that way as opposed to having to try and price into that customer acquisition piece, because I mean, listen, we've all been there, right? Sometimes you get the person that's not even home and you're like, what are the details? What's going on here? You're measuring everything and you're like, well, they've got this, this, and this that to deal with, but you've got no feedback, and you price in taking care of this, and this, and they get their quotes and like, well, hey man, you were like $200 higher. And it's like, yeah, but I was taking care of these things. And they look at the other quotes, and well, even if there's something in there, they don't know how to compare them apples to apples anyway. You lose the business and you're out, right? So there's that piece versus, the other side of that is you go out there for free, you do an estimate, and the guy or gal is out there talking to you for an hour, like telling you their dead dog's name from 20 years ago and who they went to prom with. It's like, I don't care. I just want to, let's move this along, let's get down to business here. And I think that's one too. So I'm a big believer in that. You know, hell, your wife. It's the same thing your wife said, Curtis. You have intellectual property in your head. You have knowledge that few people have, and you have a way to apply it. Now you're going to demonstrate that way and do it more and more outwardly, where people can pick that up. But that is worth something, right? And that cost to acquire is sometimes hard to place a value on when you're trying to just extrapolate it over 20, 30, 40, 200, 300, 400 customers, versus just saying, hey, listen, if you want me to come in here this year and give you a game plan, here's what it costs. Here's what it costs. So, that would be another thing in that second phase of after you get through this referral piece and everything like that, is try that. Like, just put it out there and see. And I think, somebody said in the chat here, know your value proposition. Even though it costs $75, that's still a value proposition, because how many of these companies now are willing to come out and talk to you face to face versus, hey man, put your address in the little bar there and it spits out a number just like True Green does, and alakazam, wham, there you go. Here's a number, and it's like, all right, like you figure that all out from space and some Google Maps satellite? Are you sure? We're sure. We're sure.
Right.
But are you really sure? We think we're sure, and here's the price. Here's your, or here's your Groupon, whatever. Okay, so anyway, I digress. I was getting a little fired up there because I believe in that strongly. So, I guess, did that answer your question about the pricing piece, or what? What other thoughts or reactions do you have to that?
No, that I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, that's after spending a real big chunk of my life always being just an employee and being told what to charge and never having to be the one to figure out what to charge, it's a huge step, and it's stressful, not wanting to mess that up. Obviously I need to make money to be able to continue to do it, but I don't want to gouge people either. I want it to be fair all the way around. So that's trying to find that balance, it's tough.
Well, and the last thing I was going to say on that knowing your numbers piece is, I see people that are paying themselves, aren't paying themselves, high enough salary, or are like straight up scared. And I'm the same way as you. Like, in my business is like, I don't want to feel dirty. I want to be able to sleep at night. I don't want to feel like, oh man, I raked that guy over the coals for everything I could get. Like, no, like that's not what it's about. Like, I'm here to provide value. And again, depending on the situation, it might be, your intellectual property and the skills that you're able to provide somebody might be worth a little bit more to a certain client. That doesn't make it mean that you're feeling dirty. It just means that, hey, in this situation, they're placing a higher value on what you can deliver than what somebody else might. So I think you need to have that flexibility. And again, the last part is just don't feel dirty about profit. Like, a lot of people don't put that into their model, like their pricing model. They just, hey, whatever's left over at the end is what our profit is. Like, no, like, you need to build that into what your total cost is. So that's a set figure, right? Or there's a target there. And then you can weigh, you can basically measure yourself against, that's one metric that you can use, right? Of, okay, hey, am I doing this faster? Am I doing this too slow? Am I getting callbacks? Like, what are the things that are, kind of knocking me off course from whatever the set figure is? So, Ray, what do you think about that?
No, what you kind of hit on it, and for me, I had some wise words kind of said to me by another mentor of mine, and you know what he said? He told me, Ray, you are not a nonprofit organization. This guy just
You're not?
This guy just laid it. Yeah, this guy just laid it out to me. He said, hey, Ray, you're not a nonprofit organization, so you absolutely have the right to make money above and beyond the costs of the job. And those are some words that I took to heart. And this is the same guy, that told me also, watch your customers, because people have short memories.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah,
and they talk.
And he, and he said, no, and they have short memories, and he kind of repeated himself a number of times And what he referred to is, especially in my business, people forget about their oxalis, nutsedge, and dead patches once you fix it.
Mm.
They forget about
Well,
that.
and
they develop Alzheimer's. You know,
hey, listen here. You know,
It was
good
it was
advice.
magic.
It was magic. You don't. Hey, listen. You don't want to be the person getting hounded on the Nextdoor app or the Facebook post of, this person did my lawn, and never be that person. Always be delivering value. Always do a good job. So I think that's good. Curtis, any final questions here before we wrap up and head to the after show? Any more thoughts, questions?
I would like, if not knowing exactly who they are, other than New Farm, I know is one. Any contacts you guys have? Like, again, I know I'm small. I'm not going to be ordering cases or pallets or truckloads of anything, but certainly good companies with good products. I'm all for it.
Okay, Curtis, I talked to New Farm. I talked to BASF. I talked to Bayer, and I talked to Syngenta. But, those guys, they kind of know me in a different realm because, by the way, when I say Bayer, Syngenta, and BASF, those are the companies that also heavily service golf and sports turf.
I think
they're big.
Go ahead.
Big in that world.
I think more than companies, I think developing a professional network of folks there locally that you can trust, and asking your reps, from each of those vendors, like, hey, who are good people, who would be open to me just picking up the phone and calling them and just lending an ear and letting me get to know them. And then the other piece is, you have an outstanding turfgrass science program over at Purdue in West Lafayette. So getting to know some of the guys over there, Aaron Patton would be a good one. And I'd sort of go from there. I think those are good connections to make. And then, there's obviously a lot of professional development opportunities. Indiana Green Expo is usually like the first or second week of January down there in Indy. So I'd look into that. We have a really strong program down here in Ohio that takes place in December. So we'll get you to those. You take a couple days off of work, come down and get educated. And I think as you start to do that, you build out a network of just, seeing, talking to guys and gals and, trying to find out what they're all about and that they're going through the same things that you're going through. And like I said before, there's an abundance of people out there that need and want these services. So anybody that ever feels threatened or anybody that gets oh man, I'm not going to tell you the secret sauce. It's like,
right.
All right. I don't know if you're legit. So, but all that said, man, hey, listen,
I won't get into it tonight. And I do want to ask, because I went back and I started watching it again. I went back and started watching the video with Paul Outlaw.
Yes.
My biggest thing with growth regulators is I'm still confused on your cycle periods, and I don't know if you really went into that in that video.
What was the question about specifically again?
Is your cycle times with growth regulators?
How long? When to use a PGR? Yes.
Yeah. So
we don't have to necessarily get into it tonight, but that is something I am gonna probably pick your brains on in Discord maybe. And again, if you really did go into that in that video, then I'll deal with that. But I started watching it again, and I'm not for sure that you really touched on that part. But
okay,
actually, so Paul kind of knows. Paul kind of knows more or less.
But we wanted to have, he's coming on the 24th of March. He'll be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, he and I have talked on the phone a little bit. And I think we will do a little bit deeper dive, more of just like, not necessarily him asking us questions, but more of a dialogue, because he's got a wealth of experience with it on mostly cool season. What?
That's the wrong Paul coming. You're thinking of a different Paul.
Oh, it's Paul Smith. Oh, man. When's Paul Outlaw coming? When's Paul Outlaw coming? Is he on?
TBD.
Oh,
TBD.
damn. All right, it was Paul. I saw Paul.
We can schedule
on the
him.
schedule.
We can schedule him. Yeah,
Paul Smith,
we can schedule
Paul
him.
Smith's gonna Paul Smith's gonna talk about it too. I'm gonna make him, so that's okay. I'll get Paul to fill in. I'm sorry about that. I looked at Paul. I've made so many assumptions about people's identity tonight. I feel bad. So okay, listen. We will definitely talk about that on the Discord, and listen. Come on. We do Zooms every now and again too on the Discord. Come in there, hop in, and just we chop it up.
That I've missed. It's normally late, and I've missed it. And
Oh,
I've been wanting to get in on those, and the last couple I just happen to have missed.
Maybe
those are
this Saturday night. Maybe this Saturday night we'll talk some.
Yeah,
we'll talk some
All right,
people.
I'll be ready for it.
It'll be late. We get on there about 9:00, and it goes to a question mark. It's serious. So, all right.
And
listen,
I will say for anybody, even do-it-yourselfers, any people that have any interest in learning more about lawns, JP can throw up an ad sign here, but really the Patreon and getting into the Discord in this group, it's awesome with the people that are in there, and again, Busy Bee, Lush. Again, everyone's helpful. Everyone's busy, but so far everyone's been helpful. It is well worth the cost of admission on the Patreon, and especially to get Matt to join the human race again and watch some dang movies.
Oh my gosh! Listen, I am so listen. As we approach, we're 10 away, folks. 10 away from Matt, literally climbing out from under the rock he's lived under for the last 35 plus years, and he's watched, I think, like The Wizard of Oz when it was on TV one time when he was like 4, and that's it. Like, I'm not sure that he's ever seen another movie all the way through. I say that, and it sounds like I'm joking, and I'm being hyperbolic, but it's the truth.
It is true.
And so
it is the absolute truth.
As we get towards 69 patrons, my anxiety builds because I want to make sure that we have the right movie picked out. So when we get this is the teaser, right? As we get to 64, it'll be 5 away.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna start putting some polls out of trying to slice up the first 2, 3, 4 movies that we watch with Matt, because I think it's important. We got to have a good opener. We have to throw a strong opener that he thinks, you know what? I have been missing out, and I really want to do this. So I hope we can change his mind, and I hope it's fun. So all that said, no, seriously, Curtis, thank you for the plug. That means a lot, coming from somebody like you that's been around for a while. And, it is a community. I think a lot of people, rag on us because we're not blah, 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 this whatever with this community thing. We have our own. We have folks that jive with the way that we do things, and that's cool. It's just like the customer base, like on the lawn care thing. And so we appreciate you. We appreciate your 58 brethren and sisters that do the same thing, and on the Patreon, and then all the posts that just that hop on and watch this and listen to us on podcasts and everything else. It's truly a blessing for us to get up here and do this and talk all this nonsense that's in our heads, and people actually want to consume it. Why, we don't know, but it's pretty cool. So last thing I'll say is this, and seriously, man, we're rooting for you. I mean this from the bottom of our hearts. We are rooting for you. Don't ever feel like you're alone. Don't ever feel like you don't know what to do. Dude, just seriously tag us, pop a question in the Discord. I know we're busy. I know we're doing a lot of stuff, but I promise you we will find a way to help any way we can. Because like I said, we were you once. We were you once, and we want to see you grow, thrive, and make yourself, make your family proud, and just enjoy what you do.
Yeah, this is
sure.
all about
That's the goal.
Loving what you do, because in my beginnings, I didn't have this. Ryan, you know what my source of information was back in the early 1990s? The dusty, moldy basement of the university library where all of the archived, journals and research reports were kept.
Right? Is that how your librarian fetish started? I knew it. All this time it's finally been explained. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're off to the after show. Adult talk, real talk only. If you want to check us out for that, go ahead and click the membership button on YouTube, join, get linked up with the Discord, or go over and check us out on patreon.com/Burn and Return. We will see you Sunday night for Burn and Return. We'll see you back here next week for Fill Up Friday. It's not Thirsty Thursday next week. It is Fill Up Friday with our guy, Robert Palmer. Turf is going to be on.
Wow.
So cannot wait for that live from kind of a weird spot to be in Germany right now. But we'll check you on the flip side. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.